Without a Trace, Season 7 Thoughts. There we go. Got there eventually. This contains spoilers, including for earlier seasons. It's a long video, but there are time codes for different sections in the description box. And now that I've started the timer, they're actually going to be accurate. This DVD did not have any subtitles, so if I get names, lines, etc. wrong, that's why. And there. Now we start with the episode entitled Closure 30. Yeah, for those new, that's me recording the time code onto the smartphone. So usually I would write it down on paper in hand, but I really need to not, what's it called? I need to go easy on my wrists until my carpal tunnel. Now, into the notes. You deserve to have a comfortable ass on the first date. Now, once we see the person who's going to be missing, it gets tense very quickly. Let's see. And once the missing person goes missing, compelling mystery. We don't know yet who these two people are, but the relationship is who's in the right and who's in the wrong. Now, let's see. And Samantha tells us she can't take off she can't take the jacket to the dry cleaners because it's hiding an even bigger, an even bigger stain spit up from the baby. So we get our first indication on how she's dealing with having a baby at home while, you know, this job that's consuming both in time and other things. I think I need to adjust the light just a tiny bit, because that thing is shining directly at my face, and that's going to get uncomfortable. And just a tiny bit more. Yeah, that's good. I hope that's still enough for it to not like lag or anything, but right now, watching the screen, it is not lagging yet, so. Okay. We meet Agent Medina, and we see he is a very different leader than Jack. So tell me, Agent Chiller, where would you start? Interesting approach. It really makes the agents feel like he doesn't consider them inferior to him. Meanwhile, he also doesn't ask Jack for any advice. He does acknowledge him when Jack says he'll stay there and help. Excuse me. And the missing person is Ryan Mitchell-Lee, the filmmaker who works with Brad Jones. And Ryan feels like he didn't do enough to find their daughter. So Martin, you best friends with Medina yet? He is definitely feeling us out. With Jack, you knew where you stood. He'd run you over with his car if he didn't like you, but you knew where you stood with him. And we see Lindsay go missing, or I suppose rather we don't see her go missing. That has to be the biggest nightmare for a parent, turning your back for 1 second and your kid is missing. I mean, hypothetically, like, if you're turning your back on your kid all the time and not, then, clearly you're not being careful enough. But turning your back for 1 second, that means you thought you were being careful enough. It doesn't mean that you didn't care that it was going to happen. I forgot to zoom, excuse me. It's gonna really strain my eyes otherwise. There we go. There. Shouldn't a psychic know we're coming? And the psychic saw Ryan bury his dead daughter and believes he killed her. So Ryan threatens him, so that's why he didn't want to get into the details with the feds. Now, there. Samantha points out it's unlikely that Ryan would spend 3 years looking for a daughter he killed. Compelling scene between Jack and the therapist. I really think I like the therapist character. I think she's, you know, I don't know if she's necessarily like this 100, number one nicest person on the planet, but you can tell that like, she does want to help Jack. And, yeah, there's some good back and forth there. It's not the grief that destroys you, it's the hope. You keep giving them hope. And Samantha punches the suspect in the face. I bet you 1 hollow point. Clever. And they treat the pedophile appropriately badly, but he himself does point out there's a difference between looking up a picture and grabbing a kid off the street. Yeah, just so it's said, if you feel some urge to do something wrong like that, don't do it. Suppress it, talk to a therapist. And Samantha asks Jack to cover for her. Very realistic new mom scenario. She doesn't want Medina to think she's a flaky new mom. And Jack and Medina talk leadership in the car. Good scene. And Medina explains to Jack that he's there to keep an eye on Jack. One mistake and he's out. That's it. No warning. So this was the compromise that Alex talked about in the season 6 finale, that it could have gone a lot worse. Good cut from the flashback to Jack as Medina's talking to him. For a fraction of a second, I thought that was the kid's father standing there. Very touching message Ryan left for his wife on the machine. Full circle. Makes sense. Very powerful to see Ryan reunited with the girl. And we have yet another great opener. So I forget which season it was where it wouldn't play for me. Maybe season 4. I feel like season 4. The other 6 that I were able to watch, all great. (22x42) 7:30. Now, the opening gives a good sense of Sarah and her relationship with her client before she goes missing. Like a lot of other episodes, the opening really transports you into the location that it's set. Sorry, not only the location that it's set, but the world, the specific world that these characters inhabit. It would be inhibiting for them to leave the world they inhabit. Very tense as they don't listen to her while whatever. While driving the cab and then grab her. Yeah, right. Yeah, she keeps saying, no, you're driving the wrong way and such, and just, it seems like completely ignoring what she's saying, but really they're getting to the specific place. Sarah was understandably upset that she was helping rich men cheat on their wives. And Medina thinks they go too far, making the suspects less likely to talk. Jack considers taking the job. And Samantha has a baby monitor webcam. I'm honestly not entirely certain that I've heard of that exact thing before, but it does make a ton of sense. I know that some people, like before the internet was big, at least some people would set up a hidden camera to spy on their babysitter without telling the babysitter. Or at least, yeah, I don't know if that was the norm. There was an episode of Malcolm in the Middle where they didn't tell the babysitter, and the babysitter finds out. But let's see, yeah, so I don't know if they normally do tell. Samantha would most likely tell, but she also wouldn't hire someone she didn't trust completely to be a babysitter. And let's see. But yeah, it makes a ton of sense to have the webcam so that she can, over the course of her day, just briefly look in on, you know. Very unusual for the show to show the kidnappers as well as the missing person so early in the episode. I've seen it on other shows and movies. It works well here as well. Yeah, both in these others and in this specific one. Now that I've watched the entire season, it happens it happens in the finale as well. And I guess it yeah, it happens yeah, and it happens in the Ghost Bride episode. So it does happen a couple of times over the season, and I forget if which season it was, but there was an earlier episode wherein we saw, not only did we see the person, instead of usually on the show when you see someone go missing, the camera will show them and then they'll fade out of the shot. But there was an episode in a season before this one where they don't show that, but instead show very clearly the person being killed, and then basically the audience knows that she's dead already. I forget how quickly the agents got to that conclusion themselves. Overall, there's not a lot of episodes like this in the show. I do feel like, yeah, they're exciting. They're definitely, but I just feel like we have other shows for that. You know, I yeah, I don't really think that this show needed to go. Yeah, that's. I forget if I've already made this note, so I'll just real quick. I'm gonna put in the review notes, wondering why there was no spin-off of this show, like there are of CSI and Law and Order. Now, Sarah realizes the kidnappers are the guys who tried to buy her drinks, and yeah, and one of them is not quite as hard on her as the other one. Sarah escapes in the present before the team have found her. In fact, only halfway through the episode. Very unusual to see this sort of thing on this show. And Sarah's tape is terrible, because it tears. Medina offers Martin a promotion. Does that say? Was it? I remember it as being Danny who sees them, but in the notes it says Elena. One of the other agents sees them shake hands through the window. Did that ever come back? Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that should have come back in some way. That person should have believed that he was trying to. I mean, did the other guy tell Jack? It looks like Martin and Medina are. I mean, it does. Ultimately, Martin comes right out and tells Jack. Excuse me. That's not what he tells him. He tells him that Medina offered him a promotion, and yeah, he even says, maybe this whole thing was my father's doing. Jack, you've burned a lot of bridges here. Maybe it's time for a fresh start. They're blackmailing me. Mostly, I think Lucy does good acting, but it was pretty terrible when she said, "Oh, we lost the signal." That is just, I'm afraid I don't remember exactly how she said it now, since that was like 20 days ago. that I watched the episode, but yeah, it was really really bad. I don't know what happened there. Did they not have time to do more than one take? And she doesn't always deliver her best work path. It's in the very first take. I don't know. Very very strange. Now that I've watched all the episodes, ultimately Lucy didn't. They didn't really do anything, quote unquote, with her. She didn't really have subplots and such. But I do think, she was a perfectly good addition to the show. That is the thing. Really, the if the side characters don't, what's the word? If the side characters don't contribute to the main character subplots, then the side characters don't really get subplots. I guess that's a. Yeah, I'm just gonna record that to put in a review. If the side characters don't contribute to the main character subplots, the side characters don't really get to be in subplots. There. Let's see. But yeah, I mean honestly, overall, I don't know why they ended up replacing him with Lucy. Did she have like a was it, excuse me, did she have some sort of, like, did the actress, I mean, yeah, maybe she had more audience appeal. Maybe there was some feedback that people didn't really like the other guy, but yeah, I mean, I think they had more than one, but there was one that appeared several times, and he, at one point, like Danny and Jack are, he's explaining something to them, and Danny picks up like a pen from his table, and the tech guy immediately goes like, be careful. That thing's a camera. Like, don't just, like, if you drop that thing, it's gonna be extremely expensive. And okay, so, carefully puts it back down, and then after a little more information is exchanged, and then Jack turns to Danny and says, that thing's not a camera. And I think he's called Mac. Mac, the tech guy's like smiling, like, yeah, I got you. And Danny, like, he doesn't like smack him upside the head, but he, like, yeah, there's a little, like, he's clearly irritated. He's annoyed that Mac tricked him like that. I feel like, yeah, like, hypothetically, if he had been in the show as much as Lucy had, I'm not saying that he necessarily would have had many more moments like that. I think it was the only one they gave him, but I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is, I think that if you change something in a long-running show like this, the change should be for the better. And ultimately, I feel like it didn't really. I'm not saying it made it worse, but I just don't think it really made it better. And yeah, I don't know. Anyway, very tense as the agents get to where the kidnappers are. And Samantha motions to Sarah to duck down, and then when Sarah does, Sam shoots the other kidnapper. And we see Samantha come home and see the baby sleeping. And Jack watches Samantha via the webcam baby monitor. Now, let's see. I think you know, obviously she doesn't know that he's looking, but he only looks for a few seconds, and doesn't feel like he's spying on her as much as it feels like maybe, he likes to see her happy, and maybe he wants some sort of, what's the word, like, maybe he wants to be a little more active in the baby's life. Certainly he shows later in the season that he's perfectly comfortable with that. So yeah. Now, and hypothetically, again, as far as I remember, she never does find out that he looked at her for that. But if he had like been like, the other day when you were coming home, right after the case with Sarah, I watched you on the webcam for a few seconds before I turned it off. She wouldn't be like super upset with him, and I think that's a very important aspect of that kind of thing. Yeah, it doesn't feel like stalking. Now that, yeah, I made this note after watching the entire episode, I feel like the cuts to Sarah with the kidnappers was a decent enough element, but I'm not sure there's anything in the episode that really makes a strong case for this small break from format. And yeah, it didn't bother me as such, you know, yeah, for a quick comparison, again, I have nothing again. If, this is the first of the episodes I do about this show, I have nothing against Rosalind Sanchez in person. I honestly, there are several celebrities where you're like, they really shouldn't be doing that. But, I certainly liked Liam Neeson a lot more before he talked about going, wanting to beat up a black person for the, anyway, the, yeah, I have no opinion on her as a person, but I do think, and I do think she's gotten better, but I do think that a lot of her acting just isn't very good, and it stands out because most of, yeah, all other main character acting is great, and even in these later seasons where they get more soap opera with, they still, they make it, they managed to convince me that it's the same character, not just actor, that I've been watching for all these seasons. Excuse me, the writing has changed, but it feels like it's consistent. Like the way Danny talks to Elena once they're flirting and in love and this whole thing. Yeah, he's always been that kind of, it's the same kind of charm that he's had since the start of the show. So, yeah, that sort of thing. And I mean, I guess maybe Samantha, it ends up feeling a little like she is more like, I feel like the Samantha of the very earliest, like maybe the first two seasons especially, it would take a lot for her. Like, I think, yeah, in those seasons, I feel like she would have been more, like, if she found out she was pregnant, I don't know if she would necessarily have had an abortion, but she specifically said, this world is too terrible a place to put children into. That's, I feel like if she had had a baby in one of those early seasons, we would have seen a lot more of her being really worried about what the kid, you know, yeah, like how, well, that's a spoiler for that show, so I won't talk about that. But anyway, what I'm getting at is the what was my point? I'm certain that I had something that I was getting to. The breaks from format, that's where I started. I'm going to try not to spend a lot of time on this. If I can't think of it, I'll just move on. Break from format, and let's see. Or, yeah, maybe it was was it the potential spying thing? No, wait, yeah, I guess I did make my point. Yeah, just to briefly reiterate. It doesn't really bother me that they made these more soap opera changes, but I definitely do. It's definitely different from the. I mean, I do remember. I'm rewatching. I forget. I guess today, yeah, I'm rewatching an episode. Yeah, I'm afraid I don't remember which, but an episode from the first season. I'm gonna over the next 3 weeks. I'm gonna watch. There's 7 seasons, so it's 3 episodes per season that I'm gonna watch to better give me, yeah, to compare, and then I'm going to review the show rather than doing the review the same day as I do the season thoughts for the last season, as I used to do, because that got real stressful with Alias and Dexter. But yeah, I feel like it doesn't bother me too much. The Anyway, but it definitely is, you know, a thing. It definitely changed. But yeah, it's a change that I don't mind too much, which again, I do mind that they cast Rosalind Sanchez at a time when she couldn't act. I have no idea, I don't know anything she's done in the last 10 years, because I really don't pay attention to, yeah. Anyway. Excuse me. Last call, 2530. And it's starting to bug me about wanting to reboot. But if I do reboot it, it's just going to want to reboot again. So I'm telling it not for another 4 hours, and by then I'm almost definitely going to be done with this video. So, right. Clever mystery at the opening. We don't realize right away that this is a prison. We're just seeing people planting plants. I like the con and the guard joking with each other. So this is the second episode in a row where the bad guys have a clear plan and wear ski masks and such. And we see the circumstances under which the missing person goes missing, even if we don't have all the facts at the start. I was wondering if this was going to be a more frequent thing on this season. I guess it was just, excuse me, it was basically just these 2 episodes. I feel like they should have spaced them out more. I don't mind that, I'm not going to claim that in 7 seasons of mostly like 22 episodes per, of course they repeat stuff. The show has ultimately, again, I love the concept, but it's maybe a tad too narrow to completely avoid repeating stuff. It's always a missing person, and they always take, the 40 minutes of the episode to get to, for the agents to find the person. Yeah, with a few exceptions. So of course they're going to end up repeating major ideas. There's only so many ways to, not as bad as, was it, I feel like Obscurus Lupa made that point about Baywatch. Although I think she was maybe quoting a producer from the show or something, that there's only so many things you can do about, a beach. Yeah, sorry, these are 2 extremely different shows, especially in quality. Anyway. He may have stolen from the rich, but he sure as hell gave to the poor. That is a pretty funny custom cake. Excuse me, I'm just gonna make sure. And we are done. What is this, a joke? Do we look like comedians? We at the FBI don't have a sense of humor that we're aware of. And the guard claims it was an escape, not a kidnapping. Clever of Todd to pretend he couldn't hear them. And one of the ski mask wearers did give him the idea. Let's see. I think I need. Is that it? There. There it is. It's kind of stereotypical to say that the cold businessman doesn't have love in his life anymore. That's why he's like that. But it is also so very often true. That's part of why it's such a stereotype. And it's important to put stories like this on TV so that people can realize that, that's often what's going on. I guess I don't have a lot of personal experience with this sort of thing, but I could imagine that people who haven't heard that idea before, I don't know. I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge when someone, I'm not saying it's only rich or powerful people, but when it's extremely important when it's rich and powerful people who clearly don't have a lot of empathy, because through all the power they have, they can make a lot of people extremely miserable, and they also have the power to either not do that or maybe even help fight others who make their, lives of other people extremely miserable. And if you've never heard, like, if someone just tells you this person is not, that person does bad things, for one thing, they might not believe you, and for another, they might say, well, he's trying his best. And that's really an extremely important idea to combat. Because if you think that someone is doing the best they can, then you're less likely to agree that something needs to be done to make sure they stop doing awful things. And yeah, the fact that, you know, some extremely powerful people, yeah, there's nothing, they don't have love in their life. There's nothing making them happy. There's nothing making them empathize with regular people. Then yeah, and this, the show sometimes not, does provide, what's the word? Yeah, yeah, sometimes the ideas that it puts on screen are, really, yeah, true ideas that really, where it really helps people, that it's getting put out there, and others, it's harmful ideas. So I'm always glad when it's a helpful idea. Excuse me. And the FBI were ready and waiting in the bank, but one of the robbers tries to shoot Martin while the others give up. Turns out Reynolds isn't among the robbers. The robbers don't want to talk. I'm afraid I've already forgotten if they shoot that robber or they manage to disarm him before he's able to shoot Martin. Alan is terminal with pancreatic cancer. Excuse me. Alan doesn't want his own son to be left in the dark once he's dead. And Jack can relate to Alan's son. And Jack talks about Alan's relationship with his son with Alan and relates the story of his mother's suicide. And this is not some kind of, the following isn't like some huge point, just putting it out there. So far, all the episodes of this season are exactly 42 minutes and 54 seconds. Yeah, and it varies later, but I don't think it ever varies by more than 30 seconds, where in previous seasons, there were sometimes like 2 minutes difference. So I don't know, was there some kind of change made around 2008 to TV shows where, or 2009, sorry. Anyway, Jack claims that he couldn't find Alan. You really got a sense of him empathizing with him in the car. True, false, 3220. We immediately get a sense of the relationship between between the bodyguard and the neighbor. How is DC? It's actually lovely this time of year. It's a shame you couldn't stay a little longer. And we get an actual title sequence. It's been a while. Yeah, this season, I ended up not counting, but ended up not even thinking of counting. But yeah, there are some episodes where it's very clearly like so there are some episodes they do play the full title sequence, some episodes they don't. I feel like in earlier seasons they almost always played the full title sequence. I was gonna say, is that a thing about the amount of time that the episodes ended up, but then in this season they end up at 42 minutes and about 50 seconds, regardless of whether they play the. And anyway, Medina is not in the opening title sequence. Interesting. At this point in what when I watched that episode, I had no idea he would be in so little of the season. And we right away realize things are difficult between Will and his father. Agent Medina, can I talk to you? Yeah, so what's up? What's troubling you? Martin declines Medina's offer. Did she just say that she thought his ditching was junioritis? Like, so, an affliction found in high school junior? Or wait, was it college? One of those. Juniors. He needs a junior mint. I'm afraid I don't remember the other ones. Man, I could watch that show again. For those who have no idea what I'm talking about, that's a reference to, wait, what's it called? Crap. I'm afraid I no longer remember. Was it like Aliens in America or something? It was where like this, unpopular, teenage boy, his parents bring in a foreign exchange student, and it's, the yeah, and the exchange student is, a Muslim person of color, and it's an awesome show. It's a let me think. It's not a sitcom, but it is a comedy show. It has sequences that you don't see in sitcoms. It has scenes set outside with a lot of different angles, and yeah, and it's not and not all of the comedy is the sitcoms. A lot of the comedy is based around dialogue and such, and not all of the comedy on that show. Anyway, okay, here it is. You don't save a kitten out of a tree without talking to me first. Are we clear? Yeah, we're clear. You hate kittens. What do you think Superman is for? So that's why the doorman thought that guy hit Will. That is very contrived. Will found out you're having an affair. That's why he was suddenly so okay with cheating. There are a lot of things that I'm going to miss once I'm no longer watching the show. Here's one I won't miss: seeing yet another accidental killing. And that's not even the only one in this season. Jack talks to Medina about the advice he got when he started working as the leader. Okay. Rise and Fall, 3750. Excuse me. Very tense opening. Excellent use of POV and great editing really sell how hard this experience is on Fran. You are losing yourself to this job, Ariana. Not everybody thinks about how hard people in her line of work are hit by violence. So in other words, no. Right? Is it just me, or is the show playing Medina as kind of stupid in this episode? And, excuse me, it made me wonder if they were working towards him leaving the show. And, he does, but not because of, like, stupidity. Although I argue there's a claim, one could claim that it is stupid. And Medina wants them to look for Ross, the missing little girl, instead of Ariana. And excellent filming and music as Maddie gets kidnapped, having her out of focus as her sister plays the video game. As I say, Dean Ross loses control and grabs Medina. Basically, his lizard brain is telling him, this guy is going to get your daughter killed. The cop isn't certain that he saw the girl move. Who did Tyler hit? It wasn't Andrew. The brother isn't a lot of help. We're on hour 9. Medina is very clearly concerned about Maddie. Zach killed Ariana. I missed her by 20 minutes. I want you to know that. 20 minutes. And Jack strangles the brother and gets answers. So, like I said, I think season 6 thoughts, we are seeing more instances of torture as the seasons go on. Excuse me. Which, to reiterate what I said in that season, is a bad thing. You know, this is a show that started out with much more of a humanistic, progressive approach to, for example, interrogation. You know, it's not threats and torture and this kind of thing, that kind of thing that gets results. It's making, yeah, you know, and yeah, it's too bad. It's unfortunately, you see it a lot on, you know, I feel like I'm not sure it was Feminist Frequency who coined the term propaganda, but it is, yeah, you know, because I mean, you'd have to live in a cave to not have heard about cases of police brutality, and shows that feature police brutality but have it lead to results, you know, that kind of legitimize those sorts of things. You know, then people, when they hear that someone, you know, that there's police brutality, they, you know, they feel, I mean, a lot of people already assume, but they feel more certain in their assumption that, I mean, it got results at least, you know, and I don't know, I mean, he's probably a really bad guy or something, you know. You know, it's not necessarily a problem to show it being done, it's a problem to show it working. And sometimes the show does, you know, I feel like that was season 6 where a CIA guy wanted to torture someone and Jack, let me think, did he stop him entirely or did he only get to stop him after he started? I forget the exact details. And I think he specifically said, yeah, anyway, it's clear that Jack didn't believe that it was okay or would get results. Because if he thought it was okay, he would have let it happen. And if he thought it was get results, he would have hesitated more to stop him. So, and yeah, and if you're watching this video and you didn't watch that episode, he pretty much didn't. The moment he saw, okay, this guy's going to torture, you know, at first he threatened to torture the guy. But once he actually starts, I think he's about to cut one of the fingers off the guy. And the moment that Jack sees him, like, at first, if I recall, he holds up it's one of those gardening tools, you know, he holds it up in front of the guy's face and says, I'm gonna take your fingers, to get the guy to talk. And I think he does start talking, which already is problematic. But anyway, then he says, you're not telling me everything, something to that effect. And then he, like, puts the thing around one of the fingers, and Jack immediately, without hesitation, grabs him, and I forget the exact move, but he, like, the CIA guy ends up on the floor. And I'm pretty sure he didn't cut even a single finger off. So it's clear that Jack, yeah, both thought it wasn't okay and was certain that it wouldn't help anyway. Because he has been shown to be willing to do things that are extreme in order to get results. Excuse me. And the kidnapper opens fire, so the agents are forced to shoot him. Such a relief when we see Maddie alive in the trunk. Heartwarming as we see Maddie reunited with her parents. And devastating as we see Martin with Ariana's widow. Just real quick, I forget if I ended up actually saying it, but there was an earlier season where one person was missing, was black. I forget if it was also a guy. And another person was missing, and it was a white girl. And, like, basically, ultimately, the team tried to find both, but more resources were afforded the white girl, and then at the end, you see them found, but you don't, someone radios back, and the line is one alive, one dead. We're not told which is which. And then we see, I forget, maybe Jack, walking into the room where both mothers are waiting, very, in great anticipation, and and the episode just ends right there without telling us which. I forget if I did end up saying in that video, but I think the idea was the audience is supposed more important than whether it was, I suppose you could say that it's a fairly logical assumption to say that the white girl was found alive, but if I recall, they found them both around the same time. It wasn't edited as one of those things where, so the I think the idea is supposed to be that the audience is supposed to, we're supposed to make up our own mind as to which one survived, and then we're supposed to face, wait, do we think that it's, like, let's hypothetically say that you think the white person survived, then if you're relieved at that, does that mean that you think, you know, are you an all lives matter person, or are you still upset that that a black person died? And yeah, hypothetically, if you're relieved that the black person survived, does that mean that you didn't, that, I'm not going to get into some kind of discussion about reverse racism, although I do think, I'm afraid I forget exactly which, I'm sorry, I don't remember the comedian's name, but there's this, I mean, I don't know, I guess they're a group, I'm not sure, but they have a shared YouTube channel called Fear of a Brown Planet, and one of them has a joke about reverse racism, and it is unbelievably funny and so spot on. I love that joke, and if you haven't, I forget if it is just straight up called reverse racism, but anyway, yeah, but it is possible to care more about the, again, we're talking about hypothetically they are essentially equal in this scenario, one black person, one white person, and if you are relieved that the black person was found alive, even though the white person wasn't, maybe, yeah, do you feel that it is somehow more, I feel like that's the point of the episode. I forget if I said it in that video, but now I did. Back to these notes. I made the best decisions I could, but the fact is, she's dead because of me. And Jack and Medina talk about the hard decisions. I do really, I don't know if I would have preferred the season with Medina as in charge the whole season, or whatever, but I do like that Jack, yeah, he gave Medina some advice he himself was given, and in this episode, yeah, you know, they could very easily have made Medina a, real a-hole, 100% dick character, but I mean, he is a very logical alternative to Jack. They're like, Jack is way out of line, so we're gonna get a guy who's not real fond of breaking the rules, particularly. And it's not, and they don't make it out as though, like, he's completely incompetent, although in this episode, yeah. Now, yeah, the show kind of paints Jack and his methods as a necessary evil, that it's somehow necessary to break the law to save people. It's very unusual for this show, but unfortunately very common for this kind of show to go there. Yeah, I think sorry. that this particular comment was specific to this episode. This episode paints Jack and his methods as necessary evil, but it's not. You know, a lot of the time the show doesn't really go there. Live to regret. 5,000. Not a penny more. That is a great. I'm just, yeah, before I get into the notes for this episode, when I was with my ex-fiance, she had not watched Star Wars yet, the original trilogy. I did not subject her to the prequel trilogy. So I showed her the original trilogy, and yeah, this isn't even a spoiler, but at one point, one character says to another, "What is thy bidding?" And she MST3K'd 5,000, not a penny more, or not a cent more, something like that. And I cracked up, and we had to pause it for like a good 10 seconds before I was, yeah, that was, has, she has a really great sense of humor. I'm just not as, we're not, yeah, we're not in as, uh, we, let me think, we have kept in contact, but we don't write as much to each other as we used to, so I'm not exposed to her sense of humor as much as I used to, excuse me. Jack is back as the boss, so only 5 episodes without him as the boss this time. I think that's a little longer than last time, but not very long, where it was Vivian. I don't know, I feel like if it's gonna last for so little time, you almost might as well not. I mean, I don't think that Jack ends up. No. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think Jack ends up playing things more safe. But yeah, in the season finale, he threatens a guy. You know, he decline. He refuses to let him see a lawyer, and threatens to shoot him to get information, and it works. So the show is still having Jack do these things and still painting it as though it's necessary. So it's not as though he completely changed his ways before. Yeah. We've been trying to get pregnant. It's very stressful, and you're doing it wrong. And Jack tries to push so that the guy will act without a warrant, and succeeds, and it's again framed as necessary. Maybe it's not such a bad thing that the show didn't go longer than 7 seasons with how aggressive they're getting with this sort of thing. And that is unfortunately true of a lot of ongoing series. They get more and more extreme as they go. Sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it's a bad thing. I would say that something like Alias, you know, other than season 5, which is unfortunately not great, and certainly it was a show that changed over the course of the run, but yeah, some of the ideas in some of the later seasons were more far out than in early seasons. I think a lot of them worked out. I think a lot of the ideas in the later seasons, like if you go back and watch the earlier seasons, they belong in the same world. They belong in the same kind of universe that the show, you know, kind of sets up. It's just that they're more extreme. And I'm obviously not going to give examples in this video. She's about to leave without the card, and he's like, "Thanks for thinking of me." And she knows now that she can't have a baby, and we're also told that she gave the one baby she could have up for adoption, which she regrets now. And to a lot of people, whether or not they can have their own baby rather than adopting one means the world to them. And that's again something that, I'm not gonna lie, if not for me watching TV with episodes like this one, I would probably have a really hard time. I just think the thing is that when you have your own baby, instead of adopting, a child already out there, you are essentially, you're turning down every single one of those. You know, I but to be fair, it's a difficult process, and a lot of people, who really want to and who might in a lot of ways be good parents, there are really high, uh, what's it called, high uh, requirements is the word for, to qualify to adopt. But anyway, she's my wife, not my sub, not some company I've acquired. I just want to briefly make it clear. I only know that line because of the song. What's it called again? Charlie Tango. Yeah, and watching the Dan Olsen video, which it plays in. I haven't read those books, and I'm never gonna. Excuse me. She had your eyes and your nose. Poor kid. Hey, I'll take care of the MST3 gang. Thank you very much. As you know, she eventually gave them back. Oh my God, Aaron McNeil. I thought she was gonna go ahead, or he, whatever, was gonna go ahead and say, "As I live and breathe." And just once, I want the response to that to be, "Afraid not. I'm actually the Grim Reaper." Lucy and Vivian arrange for her to call while they're listening in on the conversation, so she can tell the guy to let Aaron go. And Danny drives the cab that takes her to the guy, so he's close by. And he tries to draw a gun, but Danny tackles him. See, I greatly prefer when they set it up so that they can prevent a gunfight from occurring at all, rather than when they. And again, I realize that sometimes it is impossible to avoid, using guns, but there are things on the show that happen that are very rare in real life, and sometimes, excuse me, sometimes it's not. Sometimes realism is not as important as showing something that is like more positive. Hypothetically, you know, I don't think for sure there are kids who watch shows like this, shows like Law and Order and CSI, and they decide they want to work in law enforcement. And when that, yeah, as such, it's nice when these shows focus on the non-violent solutions rather than the violent ones, because a kid might you know really want to become a cop because they see that it helps people, it saves lives, and maybe they want to help you know solve cases, things like that. For sure some are going to find a lot of appeal in the excuse me in the violence, but there are some who are going to want to be cops whether the show they watch is or isn't violent. And if it isn't violent, then they get then they come to the job with the idea that it doesn't have to be violent, and they look for non-violent solutions. Whereas the ones who watch the violent show, even if they're not attracted to the violence, they might think, well, I have to. It's a necessary evil. Martin and Jack joke about the chair in Jack's office, and Martin suggests that maybe it was his father who organized the shakedown so that Martin could lead the unit. I swear, whether I sleep enough or too little, I always yawn. Rewind, 59:30. I don't know if you can hear that, but someone just drove past playing some very questionable music, but let's see. Yeah, but like I said, sometimes I yawn. Yawn. Danny was trying to be smooth, and it turns out he was holding up Elena's badge instead of his own. I like that. What does that say? I cannot figure out what that note means. Anyway, yeah. Elena and Daniel are really cute together, and it's nice to, they're so attracted to each other and so good together. We don't often see the leads be very happy on this show. Again, the opening really transports us into the world of the missing person. For a little bit, for a little bit, they're the most important. For a little bit there, the most important thing in the world seems to be how fast he can ride the bike. And he uses the sands of time to rewind time. Oh, I guess it was a dream. Sorry, I guess. Oh, it was a dream. Got that mixed up there. And let me just adjust this thing. And he's in a wheelchair, so I guess it actually did happen, and he just wishes he could rewind time. No, seriously, my legs don't work at all. I appreciate that they didn't make that scene any more awkward than it absolutely had to be, because, yeah, that kind of thing, I'm sure, happens to people like that all the time. If you just see him driving the car, then you can't tell that he's disabled. And, you know, yeah, a lot of people his age, he looks otherwise healthy, so, yeah. Another episode somewhat about how badly corporations treat regular people. They won't pay him despite it being their fault he's in a wheelchair. Although, ultimately we find out he was careless himself. They spot Elena's necklace and immediately realize she didn't buy it for herself. Chris was the fiance in Terminator 3. I'm glad to see him get more to do in something. And the bar flashback, that has to be really embarrassing. Now, why would I need a lawyer? Because you just admitted to extortion, genius. I would have thought with your exceptional peripheral vision, you would have seen that coming. I will never tire of Jack deadpan tearing apart stupid suspects. And yeah, having now watched the final episode, I'm certain I would never have tired of it if the show had kept going, and I'm definitely going to miss it. And Kit Kat mistakes Jack for Chris. So Chris was posing as Kit Kat, good misdirect. She started out thinking that this broken man ended up as a pervert, but in reality, it was that he wanted to do some good where he could. When he's stuck in a chair, he can spend a lot of time on a computer. Chris videotaped from the ADR booth. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. What I meant to say is that a plan this stupid must have gone wrong once or twice. Just pretend I'm not here. I don't want to hurt you, but I will. I was thinking the same thing. So both Anton and Kit Kat related the flashback to their respective FBI agents. Good cut, no reason to waste any time. And they go to Kit Kat giving more information to Vivian. which also, yeah, and that makes it clear that they both, independently of each other, related the flashback. And then Kit Kat, I forget exactly what, but she and Vivian have exchanged a few words. So there was a reason to go there, and it actually, I don't know if they end up comparing notes. We don't see it, I don't think. But that is one way to make sure that really was what happened, because they clearly were surprised to see FBI agents, so they wouldn't have had time to come up with a story, let alone rehearse it. Hypothetically, let's say that they were lying, they wouldn't have been able to come up with a lie and tell each other agree on what the lie should be. So they would be given away. Danny keeps teasing Elena about what their special day is, so she ends up taking the present back. Let's see. Or giving the whatever. And I'm pretty sure it was his. He was giving her a present for their special day, and she wasn't sure what it was. Yeah. And Vivian points out the gun gave Chris a false sense of security. Next time Harry goes after him, he's gonna pull a scar, be prepared. A whole month, that's what I call rehabilitation. New shoes. Whenever I shoot a perv, I always invite him over for pizza first. It's not believable now. Holy crap, this guy's good at incriminating himself. I didn't shoot the guy. Let's see. Didn't shoot the guy, didn't tell me he was dead, and I wouldn't hurt a guy in a wheelchair. How could you tell from looking at his face that he was in a wheelchair? Yeah, just... Bullets go through doors, Harry. And Chris hesitates to shoot Harry, and he grabs the gun and suicides. I believe he says something like he can't go back to prison. I think, Wallace, that you need to find a different line of work. You're way too stupid to be a criminal. And Chris tells his brother that the accident was his own fault, and he wants to drop the lawsuit. And Chris apologizes to the driver. He now feels for the driver in the aftermath of a cyclist who drove across his path. And Martin finds Chris down. I guess Chris is guessing that Anton freaked out after seemingly killing Chris with a chokehold, so it wasn't quite an unintentional accidental killing, but only because the guy survived. When I woke up, he had me wrapped in plastic. Well, someone's a Dexter fan. So Anton goes from seemingly accidentally killing him to kidnapping him and trying to murder him. So Anton was getting revenge, and that's why he was willing to kill Chris, so he wouldn't stop getting revenge. And Danny explains to Elena what their special day is. I'm really going to miss seeing Danny be so charming now that I'm no longer watching the show. Or rather, 3 weeks from now when I'm no longer watching the show, and after today when I'm no longer watching new episodes of the show. I'm still not 100% certain if I did end up watching all 7 seasons back when this first aired, because I was watching TV in 2009. I'm not anymore. Haven't been. I forget. I don't know exactly when, but maybe 2013 or something. Since then, I just don't. Excuse me. Like, I have a TV screen, but I use it to play DVDs and such. I forget if I get a signal whether I want to or not, but I feel like if I did try to watch TV, I'd only have like a couple of basic channels or something. But I don't want to watch TV again. Anyway, am I interrupting something? And they say yes in unison. Alright, please continue. And he walks off. Excuse me. Better Angels, 10940. Now, for some reason, while this episode is on disc 3, the next episode is on disc 2, and other than these two episodes, they're all on the right discs, so... Yeah, and I think all of them are in the correct order as well. He cut himself shaving, and there's a flashback to being on fire, so that's a good hook for staying through the episode. Another episode about cutbacks and the like, hurting working people. Smile, Rob, you're on candid camera. Jack and Samantha seem like they might rekindle their old relationship. Room. Yeah, you know, government cutbacks, you know. No, I'm kidding. Rooms. Just checking. This could kind of come off as sexual harassment, but honestly, there's no way that Samantha would put up with that kind of thing. So instead, it's amusing banter. Like, seriously, if he hadn't said, no, I'm kidding, rooms, you know, no, she would not have stood for that. But, yeah, you know, both of them, they know each other so well. He knew that if he made that joke, you know, ultimately she would be okay with it, but he thought that he could maybe, like, for a fraction of a second, make her, you know, wonder if he was. And she knew, you know, again, once, like, maybe for half a second, she was like, wait, really? But after that, she was like, no, there's no way. And it's like, it's like a game of poker. They're testing each other's poker face, basically. Can you know, can I convince the other person that, you know, can he make her think that they're gonna stay in the same room even though they're not together? Or, yeah, that's one, and the other is, can she make him think that she never doubted that they had separate rooms? So, yeah. Excuse me. Like, hypothetically, let's say that this was the very first episode that Elena was in at all, and someone said that to Elena, then you'd have issue. But these two have known each other for many years. You know, they wouldn't still be working together if they couldn't handle the fact that they're working with someone they used to be with. Excuse me. And they're also comfortable with making jokes like this. What, men don't ask for directions? That's a stereotype. That's beneath you. You got lost, if you say so. You got lost. They're really fun together. And again, I'll grant, that exchange would never have happened in, like, seasons 1 or 2. There's no way. It's too, you know, it's too light-hearted. As a metaphor, that's fine. As an answer, it stinks. Let's go with the metaphor. And Samantha explains things have changed because she has a baby now. Alright, rock, paper, scissors. And Samantha gives him a looking. And shut down. You were high on PCP. You're a good man, Charlie Brown. That's a hard way to go. A piece of licensed music plays over the ending. I feel like it's been a long time since that happened on the show. Maybe it's happened on episodes that wouldn't play off the DVD or something, but otherwise, yeah. I had completely forgotten how rare that actually is overall. If you had asked me 8 years ago, I would most likely have said that they do that on maybe 25% of all episodes. When, now that I've watched all of them, I don't know, is it maybe, it's probably less than a tenth. Yeah, it's way rarer than I remembered it as. But yeah, not saying that's a negative thing or anything. But yeah, before I started rewatching, I had ah, half a year ago, I guess, or so, I had completely forgotten how rare it was. Sweet moment between Jack and Samantha, but I really wish she didn't kiss her without consent, given that they are not already in a romantic relationship, and she's recently expressed that she doesn't want to be in a romantic relationship with him. I gotta say, the writing, acting, chemistry, Samantha and Jack just work really well together. They might be the main character couple on the show that I find the most convincing and appealing. I do really like Danny and Elena together, and I also think that some of Elena's best moments are when she's with people that she clearly cares about, whether it's Danny or Sophie, you know. Push comes to shove. 1:16:00. Don't ever do this again. I don't know. I mean, if you can do it this well, I mean, that was an astonishing amount of exposition in a very short amount of time. We literally just met these people. The show was incredible at immediately putting you in a very specific world. Thinking of you, flips the card over. Next time you're dead. Well, that escalated quickly. And the episode explores the cost of healthcare for poor people, bullying in foster homes. And Samantha takes the pulse of the guy on the bed and, with a look, says, "He's dead, Dan." And badass Erica facing the mob guy. So that's where the "next time you're dead" card came from. As misdirects go, I do feel like that was one of the, excuse me, less disappointing ones. Like, it wasn't, you know, yeah. And to get information out of him, Jack lies and tells the patient that he's dying, which is illegal and unethical, and then it's played off as a joke. At least he does ultimately learn the truth in the episode itself. And they have the sniper shoot the mob guy right in front of Erica, saving her. Cloudy with a Chance of Gettysburg, 1:18:00. They do a good job of making Ben vaguely weird and creepy. Let's see, right there at the start, and then we see the blood. This episode has some very nice transitions. To the Civil War reenactment thing, it goes into the still shot, and then Ben and the other guy walked out of the building already in shot. Just, yeah. If Kirby had more motive, his head would explode. I mean, you needed something there, but I don't think that was the best. I feel like you constructed half of a good line, but then yeah, I'm not saying I know that I can necessarily come up with a better one, but you don't see me trying to write, you know, television shows now. But they definitely needed to acknowledge it. You can't do something that obvious without acknowledging it at all. Where are you going? You can't go into the field without proper attire. The war is over. You guys won. He sees the FBI agents and runs off. Is that banjo music playing? And the other guy says, "Sir, we're not supposed to retreat yet." I feel like this episode gets a little too, like, comedic, maybe. It When I watched it, it didn't bother me that much, but thinking back on it now, it was a little. So I think it worked for me. The jokes do tend to be funny, but yeah, there is nothing more for us to talk about. Okay, Weather Boy. I've heard a lot of people refer to as boy to demean them, but turning Weather Man into Weather Boy, that's never heard that one before. I really, yeah, just like, I mean, isn't there like, let's see, Weatherman, um, let's see, if you wanted to turn that into something demeaning or something like, like, yeah, like, go point at a blank screen or something, like. But Weatherman to Weather Boy, maybe was that the joke? Was it supposed to be? Anyway, I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. Even for yet another of the show's countless accidental kills, this one is absolutely ridiculous. I quit, and then he gives a message to his ex to try to get her back on air. Excuse me. I love the look on the other guy's face. Dude, that is the risk you run when you put someone on live TV in a fictional story. Occasionally in real life as well, but it's a very fiction thing, yeah. This was an odd one, you're telling me. And Jack wants to fire the cannon, and when he does, the cannon hits a car, although we only hear it, we don't see it, but yeah, car alarm goes off. When this show does comedic episodes, they really don't mess around. They get really silly, and again, when I watched it, I cracked up. I'm not gonna lie, but thinking back on it, it was maybe like, you got to be careful with things like that in a show that largely wants to be taken seriously, like firing a cannon and then it hitting a car like that. It feels like a Scrubs joke or something. Yeah. And not even one of the things they do in real life, but one of the, imagined scenarios or something. Wanted 12220. Not to be confused with the movie comic. I think Tuchus means mustache. The poisoning theory does sound wild. And they find the mother, and she claims Daphne is gone. I just told you what you wanted to hear. Daphne, like countless other children of divorce, has a hard time accepting that her parents are not going to get back together. Samantha talks to the school. To be honest, he acted like an ass. I like Samantha and Vivian talking about whether Samantha and Jack are a we. She took something to make herself sick to try to bring the parents together. Some children of divorce will go to great lengths. Your parents will always hate each other. Even looking at you reminds them how much they hate each other. I've heard that's true. That's hair dyer. Possible cranberry juice. I'm with Michael Giacchino. Red hair is better. You need to put a shirt on. Why would he tell the FBI agents that happened? It just makes him sound guilty. But we do have another instance of someone being mistaken for a pedophile when that wasn't. I, yeah, I've said before, and I do really think a lot of people. I've already said in this video, pedophilia is horrible, but there are people who just have slightly off relationships with young people, and there's this. I think whenever you hear an accusation, you should take it seriously. But if you just see something that seems a little weird, you shouldn't assume that there is necessarily something, if especially if when like if you can only if the only evidence you have is that you feel like, well, isn't that guy too old to be spending time with someone that young if they're not related? You know, that it is possible that they were just friends. So she made herself look like the missing girl. I'm just asking for a few hours with her, that's all. And Samantha relates to Daphne as someone else who ran away as a teenager. And Jack talks to the baby as though it's an adult, and it's one of those gags where we see him talking for a while, and then it cuts, and then we see who he's talking to, and it's an unexpected. I had forgotten that they still did jokes like that in 2009. I thought that was purely a 90s thing. Like, Blank Check has a joke like that, and others, yeah. And that was a kid's movie. And Brian comes by, and it's extremely awkward and kind of funny. I'm not gonna lie, the longer Brian, the more time passes since Brian was first introduced on the show, the more soap opera it becomes with him, and the more I enjoy seeing his character. Yeah. I am not going to watch soap opera. Just in case anyone's watching this and are like, if you like scenes like this, you should watch this soap opera. No, I am not going to watch straight up soap opera. Believe me. 12640. You had me until solve. First Saint Teresa disappears and then Ken does. Samantha and Brian were awkward together. Whatever my decision is, I think it needs to be final for all of us. Samantha, you do not ghost Jack Malone. I appreciate that we got visuals of the people praying instead of only voiceover. I have to admit, when I first heard, I thought, oh, well, we're gonna like at the very very start, I thought we were only gonna hear a single prayer, not single player. And then right before or wait, no, I think by the time I realized we were gonna hear more than one prayer, they were already showing people. And this is a show that, I mean, they only have so much time and so big of a budget per episode, so yeah, I didn't expect to see all these different people. They had to cast and costume, teach lines, and direct every single one of those praying people. That, I mean, they only appear very briefly, but still, you know, and as such, it takes up less time than main characters. Get rid of the statue, or I will burn the bar to the ground. God does that. Not since the Old Testament. I didn't do anything wrong. Ever? That's great. Thank you. Finally, somebody else said that. Seriously, I'm sorry. I'm trying not to let grammar be a big deal to me anymore. But just when someone says, I didn't do anything wrong, just say, in this case, or something. I know that opens the door. That means you're admitting that you sometimes do wrong things, but they're only interested in this one thing. Sam's baby is starting to be kind of a soap opera element. That's why the statue was crying. It was dropped in dishwater. And she didn't think, yeah. That's like saying the Hudson's the least polluted of our rivers. And Vivian appeals to the priest instead of threatening. We found the missing statue in the priest's home. Fantastic. With the Department of Missing Statues, we could go home. Excuse me. Samantha and Jack talk about the baby. Who are you and what have you done with Jack Malone? So he's somewhere in Canada. Where in the world is Ken Gilroy? We don't hear St. Teresa's voice. Thankfully, that would probably have been pretty silly. Jack Malone, miracle worker. A lot of funny lines in this episode. And Samantha's really cute with the baby. Huh, I'm like halfway through. It's only an hour and a half. Short by my standards for these videos. Once Lost, 1:30:20. So we have a case where it might get personal because Elena was good friends with Bianca. That thing's going off like a marital aid. Not sure I've ever heard it referred to that before, but it's clever. You can immediately figure out what he's talking about. So Bianca was the one who covered for Elena when Carlos got violent with her. We already knew this must have happened, so it's a good way to make it clear how much Elena cares about Bianca. You know, it's I don't, does it qualify as a retcon? It's a, I forget. Do retcons need to change information? Because technically it doesn't change information, it just adds to information we already knew. But anyway, turns out the 20 seconds of tape they could recover were actually super important. You know, in shows and movies like this, isn't that always the case? Just, yeah, it was Elena covering for Bianca. And that was it for that episode. Yeah, for some of these I didn't make a lot of notes. Friends and Neighbors, 1:31:30. And when I don't have a lot of notes for an episode, I don't super remember absolutely everything about, because it's, you know, a little while since I watched it. You know, that was like 2 weeks ago since I was so, wait, 2 weeks. Whatever. A while. It was a while. I guess it was closer to 1 week. Anyway. Are you expecting someone? Well, I see where this is going. Clearly they don't know what show they're on. Kate didn't have an enemy in the world. You have to go to an alternate dimension to find one. Ron, don't do what? Don't do that. What? Ron, shut up. So it seems like this woman is maybe deaf, and so they have her read lips from the video. I don't know for sure if that's something that happens for real, but it certainly would make a lot of sense for law enforcement to do that sort of thing. Who was your target? The husband, Adam Fisher. Dun dun dun. Adam, people do not forget $100,000. I don't know, does he think that it was like a billionaire who, and to him it's like pocket change or something? I don't need things, Adam. Oh no, not things. Danny has to take the shot, but at least it does mean that he saves both of them. You were right that it was the husband, and you were right that it wasn't the husband. Chameleon, 1:33:40. Very cool reveal on the person in the shadows behind Jay. He bends over, and we see the guy reflected in the car window, but it's so much in the shadow that we can't quite, you know, we don't know exactly what he looks like still. Have you seen the statistics on age and memory? Pretty stark. You should probably take a supplement. She has her father's sense of humor. And then they joke about his guns. No, I wouldn't. I would do a lot of things for you. I would take you to the airport. I would help you move. Wouldn't you lend you 10 grand? Is that what Meatloaf was singing about? Failing that, it kind of sounds like a Weird Al song. You can pay me back in time. I'll definitely make it even, Stephen. She didn't want to go through a he said, she said rape trial. Sadly, it's true, not many rapists are convicted because of things like that. Even the ones who are put on trial, when there's a lot of evidence, it's still not. Not a fan of the rape joke about the rapist himself being raped, but otherwise quite enjoy Jack's treatment of Chad. Don't push it. What's in the bag? A shark or something? And then they open the trunk and immediately wonder, how'd it get burned? Yeah, I'm not gonna shout in this video. I'm not gonna do that to your ears and speakers. Hola. Hi, busted. I'm Dad. You told me to lock up. There is a difference. Don't be a smartass. Well, Jack, you set a pretty bad example for her in that regard. He swallowed a bottle of pills. It would probably have been easier if he took them out of the bottle first, but he did not like doing things the easy way. That's why he eats soup with a knife. That's what our childhood was like. He was always on the outside, looking in. And inside we're ugly, ugly like him. And Danny ends the talking to the witness, despite Martin clearly not wanting him to. I love that in the middle of being angry at Danny over the witness, he also expresses frustration at the idea of a tofu burger. Just, I don't remember the exact lines, but it's like, we still have more questions for her. Yeah, but don't worry about it. Let's get a tofu burger. Tofu burger! Like, it's just, he doesn't just say, okay, we can eat, but I don't like tofu or something. Just like, he acts like that's, he's still in the same, as if that's part of the issue with the witness. After all this, I'm considering becoming a doctor. There's a scary thought. Maybe a veterinarian, because I effing love animals. She made dinner from scratch for not only herself, also Jack. That's why she went out, not to misbehave. And Jack talks about what kind of father he should be for her, and she just goes, does the new one like pasta? Good, because it's getting cold. She is definitely her father's daughter. So he takes on another identity at the end, and the show plays it as something that's basically fine, not a problem. Excuse me. Skeletons, 13800. When you hear an alarm, the first thing you're going to want to do is leave in a calm and orderly fashion. But you need to fight that instinct. Another episode where an infant goes missing, still in bad taste. Yeah, those posters are pretty dangerous. Selling her the car. He doesn't expect her to come home. Doesn't mean he killed her. Could be money for ransom. Just because we haven't got a demand doesn't mean he hasn't. And Vivian continues to not be a fan of Jonah's underreactions. So you had your family taken to hide them from him. And we find out how the baby was separated from Kara. Okay, I looked this up, but I forgot to write it. Let me think. I think it's pronounced Voir Dire. 13910. It's like French or something, and the voix is not, it's like au revoir or something. But D-I-R-E, yeah, I don't remember offhand how the French express that sort of, yeah. seriously, Hannah totally has her father's deadpan sarcasm. And she figured out he has a girlfriend, so his intuition as well. So they allege that Pepcon has been letting toxic materials into, well, water. And it's like, I can't really hear you, and I'm repressing the urge to do a "can you hear me now" joke. You deserve everything you've got coming to you. Pretty sure those are just two ways of saying the same thing. I think what you mean is you deserve everything that's going to happen or something like that. But you've got coming, that means you deserve it. Anyway. Jack and Sam talk about how Hannah should find out that Sam is the girlfriend. Me and also me. You told him how to prey on her insecurities. That's a little more than a pep talk. Yeah, it really is very creepy seeing him do that. Excuse me. Yeah, literally, like she said, he didn't just say, "Look at her. She wants attention." She would be happy if someone like you hit on her. He specifically says her, like, her confidence, and it's, yeah. Danny approaches Adam in the car. Adam Miller knows how to make an impression. You'll be surprised what a good night's sleep can do for your soul. Failing that, find a good shoemaker. Jack and Brian are really awkward together. I forget. Yeah, it's coming. I don't know how to feel about the baby POV shot. It's in the episode. It's a thing that happens. That's absolutely certain. The thing is that usually with the POV shot, there is this sort of sense of the person whose POV we're following understands the words being said, and like if they change, when they change what they're looking at, there's a very specific reason for it. Like sometimes in movies that have a POV shot, you'll hear a noise from off camera, and the POV will turn to look in the direction of the sound. But here, obviously the baby doesn't understand what Jack and Brian are saying. They're not like they're yeah, they're having a very mature grown-up discussion. And when he looks from side to side, I mean, I guess babies, I mean, excuse me, I mean, I guess it's that the baby doesn't quite know which of the two is dad, maybe. But yeah, would you say this is more or less awkward than the first time we met? The last time we met, sorry. Again, they gotta acknowledge, because it really is, yeah. Excuse me. I gotta admit, when I watched the first couple of seasons, I did not expect the show would have at least this kind of awkward stuff. Other kinds maybe, but not this kind. And Jack and Ryan don't have sports interests in common. They are trying. I forget. I think Jack asks if he. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't remember. But Jack asks Brian about one sport. Brian says no. But then Brian asks Jack about another sport, and Jack says no. And it's clearly like they're not lying. They want to be able to have a more. They both realize that they're gonna be in. If they're gonna be in Finn's life, they're gonna be in Samantha's life. And yeah, and they're gonna have to interact with each other, so they want to make it less awkward. Adam, you don't gotta talk so much. I've never seen someone die before. Well, that certainly is a conversation starter. I think you should use that as the first line of your Tinder bio. Tinder bio. Is that what it's called? Bio? I don't use Tinder. Let's see. Zach is dead halfway through the episode. Very unusual for this show. Drop it. The guy is very intimidating. You can understand why it scares her. He threw a grenade in the window. Where's Cap or Black Panther when you need them? And Martin is forced to shoot the guy in self-defense. Excuse me. Turns out the guy had a flak jacket on underneath, and his eyes suddenly pop open like a slasher movie killer or something. Martial arts fight between Martin and the guy. Was this a sweeps episode or something? There's a lot of sweepsy stuff. There's not usually this much action in a single episode of this show. I did this. There's no way you could have known. No problem. Samantha looks so incredulous. You'd think Jack just told her his office has no gravity or something. Something. Honestly, that would probably have been easier to believe. So no more background checks? No, no more background checks. Again, had to say it. Sam and Jack talk more about how Sam might meet Hannah. I do also like that, ultimately it wasn't really the way they had hoped it would. It's when Shay disappears, Samantha walks in instead of Hannah, and Hannah realizes she must be the girlfriend, that Jack would send the girlfriend instead of coming in himself. Let's see. And, Hannah can also tell, okay, this woman clearly cares if she's not just trying to work with me as an FBI agent working a missing persons case. She clearly is worried about, if we're gonna have a relationship for the next many years, that she doesn't want to make a bad first impression and such. Martin is drinking alone, then goes to see Kim, the person of interest. I mean, the problem he used to have was with painkillers. I'm not sure he's ever had a drinking problem on the show, so this isn't really a relapse. Certainly, the show doesn't treat it as a relapse. Nobody asked me about pulling a gun on you. I guess I just figured you had enough. Thank you. Would you like to come in for coffee? Yeah. Don't hold me at gunpoint. That is an adorable laugh. And flashback reveals she's a bad, bad girl. I gotta admit, I underestimated you. Yeah, that happens a lot. Honestly, for a few seconds there, I kind of expected her to have a sinister laugh for the first few seconds of the end credits or something. It would have been ridiculous, but they were kind of leaning in that. Ultimately we find out she's not quite as bad as that makes her seem. It's just, it's a shocking twist ending. Sometimes those go overboard. Or did they decide to dial it back for the following? Anyway. Excuse me. 1:48:00 daylight. Wasn't there a Sly movie called Daylight? What's with the Skinamax music in the opening? We see a potential jumper, and we go directly from sex to potential death, evidently. So, yeah, potential jumper on the roof. I'm going to try hard to restrain myself and not recite that joke where a guy keeps telling the potential jumper there are good reasons not to jump, and all of them fall on deaf ears. You're going to be okay. Say the GD words. So that's why your fingerprints were all over our evidence. I disagree. I think you have your evidence all over his fingerprints. What, you couldn't find a comb this morning? I wasn't going to say anything. I decided to let myself go. I'm really impressed by Vivian's, that is I want to say Bronx, heavy Bronx accent. In real life, the actress is British, and I've heard a little bit of her out-of-character interview kind of thing. She's got, an accent, a British accent, if I recall, when she's not in character. So that's, yeah. I'm honestly not even sure that Poppy Montgomery sounded like she had an accent out of character, and she's Australian. Australians tend to have a thick Australian, a very clear Australian accent. But yeah, I think when I first watched the show, I thought her Bronx accent was a little heavy. But honestly, I mean, that is the idea, right? She's supposed to be from like the Bronx and having been there for so many years that, yeah, she picked up that accent. Or rather, she has that heavy of an accent all the time. Babysitters are like dogs. They have no concept of time. Jack sees Brian touch Samantha and clearly bothers him. I'm not gonna lie, this is starting to be somewhat like soap opera with this love triangle. Nah. I take it back. You're not jealous. You have a crush on Brian. David has maintained a sense of humor. Am I supposed to know what that means? Not at all. I just wanted you to know how hard it was. As different from the show before this season as it is, I am kind of enjoying Samantha flirting with Jack on the phone. Like it's I guess not quite cute, but like sweet, I guess is the word. Did I just hear sexy talk? Yep. Danny looks really grossed out. At first I was wondering, like, I mean, does he think of Samantha as like almost his sister or something? But then no, it's because he knows that Samantha is talking to Jack, and he doesn't want to think about Jack in a sexual situation. Martin starts, get suspicions about Kim. Jack has really figured David out. It's extremely uncomfortable to watch the scene where the therapist tells a woman that she's lying about having been raped. I really wish there weren't so many things like this in TV shows. So many fictional accounts of women lying about having been raped. It leads to more people in real life not believing rape victims when they come forward. There's a lot of victims that are scared to come forward because of that. I mean, I honestly, excuse me, I think of all the TV that I've watched, I think usually when you see the woman saying she's been raped, it ends up turning out to be a lie. The times where someone is, where the show will agree this person is a rapist, usually a lot of the time you don't actually hear from the woman or women who were raped. It's so yeah, it kind of puts the idea in a lot of people's heads that if for now the only thing they have to go on is word of is that a person is saying they've been raped, then that's supposedly not credible. I'm not saying, if basically the way I see it, it should always be investigated. I don't think you should reject someone saying they've been raped if there isn't very clear evidence, like, against it, or yeah. Okay. Now, yeah, I know. Sit down. Sit. You might as well sit down. He's gonna keep telling you to do it until you do. It was an accident. Oh, for crying out loud! How many of these are there going to be on the show? Dramatic when the car crashes at the end. Very Alias, and they were even having a conversation where it's like, yeah. Excuse me. There it is. Heartbeats 15400. Amazing given the impact. See, even the characters in the script realize how unlikely it is they're alive after something that dramatic. No. After the scan, and please don't bother the nurse at the desk. Oh, so you've met Jack before? Seriously, how was like? Did he already? I don't know. Excuse me. I guess I just don't see... Whatever. Fortunately, they were able to trace from the ADR booth. Did Kim ever tell you why her uncle had a gun with the serial number filed off? I only ask because it makes her look guilty as sin. Martin won't look at the report, at least yet. He doesn't want to accept that she's a bad guy. Bad girl, bad person. He choked her, but she doesn't want the police called on him. She feels like it's her fault. The show has said it before, this very season in fact, but it is something that really bears repeating because a lot of people won't accept that it's true. Excuse me. So he bought her to give her freedom. I'm not sure I've heard of that happening much in real life, but it does sound like something that might have. Excuse me. What is it? Bordering on the zoom and enhance cliche is what it is. Do we have problem? Depends on your tolerance for over-the-top Russian stereotypes. Okay, I get this guy's angry, but he keeps trying to pick a fight with this big mafia-looking Russian guy. He can't exactly be surprised that it didn't go his way. Excuse me. Brian was with you. Unfortunately, he sustained pretty serious injuries. The drunk driver had a substantial amount of soap opera in his car, and Brian has become severely entangled in it. Martin tells Danny about Kim. Danny offers helping Martin out. I'm glad they've become friends since they didn't start off on the right foot in the pilot. Where are we going? Am I interrupting something here? I really have to imagine that the people who write in the reviews that she comes across as cold either didn't watch this far into the show or forgot scenes like this. And I think her acting has improved as well. Seriously, whenever she... Excuse me. On rewatch, I'll try to notice if it's just not there in her early seasons, but certainly in the last 2 seasons or something, when Elena is with someone that she cares about, it comes across, so, yeah. Still not, like, best actor ever, but she has gotten better. Where I come from, brothers and sisters don't kiss like that. I'm not sure where she comes from, but, well, we can rule out Westerns. I need you to fight. He needs a father. I want you in his life. She put a lot of effort into the acting performance, but she can't raise this material. I don't think anyone could, above soap opera. Did you shoot him in self-defense? It was not threat to me. Dude, I know you're a badass. This could mean decades of jail time, possibly execution. For once in your life, consider something other than whether you look badass. Excuse me. I appreciate that we both see Yuri incredibly sweet and loving and giving, and angry and vengeful. He contains multitudes. When things are mostly going his way, when he gets to be with the people he loves, then he can be giving. But when his wife leaves him, he points a gun at her. You have a visitor. Seriously, as different from earlier on the show as it is really nice to see Samantha smile like that. They find Lana, and Martin manages to disarm the guy who attacks her before he manages to hit with any shots. Again, I wish there was more of that in some of these later seasons instead of all the shooting perks in self-defense. Danny proposes to Elena. Very sweet and loving here. Martin sees them happy and is happy for them, and looks at the file, and Kim's gun is linked to violent crimes. Yeah. And Jack punches the drunk driver in the face. It really is getting to the point where it's very difficult to believe that Jack faces so few consequences for all of these illegal actions, however cathartic they may be for him and the audience. Only 2 hours. Yeah, this seems like it's going to be a comparatively short video for these, and for me. Hard landing, 159.40. Martin confronts Kim about the gun being used for crime. Martin seems to accept Kim claiming she didn't know anything about it. Remember, no loop-de-loops. Man, she doesn't want him to have any fun. Keith, the forgotten Baldwin brother. The agents are very sweet in welcoming Samantha back. Seriously, the people who claim that Elena comes off as cold and unsympathetic either did not watch this far or did not pay attention to her scenes by this point. I pickled the flower. I pickled the figs myself. I picked the flowers out myself, figured out how to spell rhododendron. See, my mind went to flower before I got done saying picked. So picked, yeah. And Samantha's told Brian will already be sent back home, even though he can't take care of himself yet. And that is sadly true. This sort of thing happens, but then on this show, the more soap opera with her, with him being in her place, even though, yeah. Martin investigates Kim. And let's see. When she started to say that she understands something that happened, I seriously thought we were going to get yet another flashback within a flashback. And Samantha talks to Vivian, says it might be sabotage. And Martin doesn't answer his phone and is thinking about Kim. I even think it's kind of cute the way you drug me to sleep just a little each day. She's not answering her cell. Yeah, I hear that's going around. I guess that's where you picked it up. And Martin talks to Danny and admits about being held at gunpoint. Even though it'll get her in trouble. Since by now they're kind of in a different, yeah. It's really nice to see Martin and Danny are getting along and supporting each other so much. So much more now than early in the show. I'm not saying it was a bad thing that it was like that early in the show. I'm saying it's a good thing that there's been so much character growth. And I feel like it's credible. I feel like these are still the same two people we met in the pilot. And you're going to be stuck in an old cell. Oh, come on, Mr. Anderson. Did he just make a Matrix reference? Search engine results being tampered with. They did not know how relevant this episode would be upwards of a decade later. I realize that it is now a decade later from the show ending and from this episode airing, but I'm saying it's not something that's only like this year, you know, hence upwards. Jack is very petty when Samantha tells him about the new situation with Brian. He does get more, he does show more empathy later in the next couple of episodes. Yeah. You got blood on your shirt. Let's see. Is it? Yeah. Don't say it. But don't you dare say it. It was an accident. You know how some people have swear jars? For anything the writers of this work on in the future, they need a "it was an accident" jar. Normally no, but I've made special arrangements. Sometimes he can be nice. We're gonna airlift you out of here. Hope your pilot is better than me. Excuse me. Danny and Martin confront Kim, who makes a run for it. This is getting to be a habit with you. Jimmy forced me to drive the car. I don't care. This guy did a Peter Pan right here. And Kim's about to shoot Danny, so Martin has to shoot her. Labyrinths. 204.20. That's Nicole Tom, or Maggie, from The Nanny. Not funny. No, not funny. That is not funny. Well, maybe not to you, but to him and to us, it's hilarious. Jack chews out Martin. You have anything to add to this? No, it's all in there. Then get out. Reminds me of the, for the fog where, like, yeah, not a spoiler. John Carpenter was talking to Rob Bottin, and he says, stand up. And Rob Bottin said in an interview, he was certain that the next, right after John said that, he was going to say, and get out. Where in reality, he wanted to see if Bottin was tall for casting him for something. And Jack tries to get into the Assemblyman's house, pretending he heard a scream because the Assemblyman is being obnoxious, so more violation of civil liberties there. Wait, yeah, I think that's what they're called. Right to not, excuse me. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's, yeah. This was the best shot of good grappling. It's crappy, but I tried to enhance it. Zoom and enhance cliche. Now, the depiction of the mental patient, I guess ultimately it is a pretty thoughtful and empathetic portrayal. They acknowledge that sometimes he's very intelligent and lucid. He understands about the Miranda rights. And when he's on medication, he's not violent, which is something that a lot of people don't understand. The distinction, it is treatable. They're not always violent. A lot of people, when they think of the mentally ill, the thing they think of is like this, compared to today, cartoonish, but I realize used to be, the reality that they just, the wild-eyed, strapped in what's it called? Straitjacket, always ranting and rambling, and would get violent if yeah, don't you get it? This is your fault. And Jack talks the Assemblyman out of calling his lawyer, so again, some of that. And we see Molly get to her sister before the agents are involved. Another unusual break from format. And then we see the Assemblyman's wife point a gun at her, and then Samantha comes in. Usually, basically, this entire scene would be in flashback. Maybe the first thing we would see would be the gun pointed at Molly when Samantha shows up to save her. Excuse me. You made this unit look like crap. You know full well that only I am allowed to do that. Martin, if it helps, you're not going to be on probation for quite that long because the show ends like 3 episodes from now. There we go. Devotion 20800. Turn it off. I'm trying. I can't find the damn remote. Pretty sure you can probably locate the place it's plugged in on the wall. Dude, your kids are about to watch a snuff film. Get creative. I don't know, maybe he's watched that deleted scene from, what's it called? Love Actually, where an attempt, unplugging doesn't work. Well, consider me hooked from the opening segment. The idea that this just accidentally ended up on the same DVD as a cheap children's movie is pretty ridiculous. That's the bouncer from The Mask. Good to see him, very, very distinct. I'm not resisting. What did I do? I'm sorry, that was kind of funny. Who are you? I'm Darren. That was my door. Darren, are you high? Not anymore. It was a bad scene, man. He took his pound of flesh. Yeah, literally. You know nothing. I know everything. Can the two of you just meet halfway and say that she knows 50% of everything? Another flashback within a flashback? helps. Helps what? Helps up the lurid content for the episode, and that's something the writers quite like. Excuse me. How did he end up with both his kidneys missing? Hardcore spin the bottle? You want me to marry Frankie's dead body? Holy crap, when this opened on a snuff movie, I thought, well, this is kind of ridiculous. Did not expect it to get this wild before the episode was over. The ceremony's tonight. Thank you. A ticking clock will help a lot. So in order for Stacey to take part, she has to be dead. Yeah. No one's heard about the Ghost Bride. I'm only going to send out an invitation. Come for the murder, stay for the drinks. And he points out that usually the people are already dead when the wedding takes place, but I guess his wife got proactive. Seriously though, no, apparently ghost brides are a thing, but I'm not sure murder is involved outside of this exploitative episode. Excuse me. And we wonder if the young woman will stop before she poisons herself because her love is dead, because why settle for one Shakespeare reference for one episode? You can't shoot me. I'm unarmed. You will be armed when they find your body. So that's incredibly messed up right there. And Samantha determines there is no pulse. I was honestly kind of wondering if they were going to have her somehow survive, like the person mixing the poison changed their mind and replaced it with something that wasn't poisonous or something. I don't know. But that would also have been really cliche and yeah. So the ending kind of implies that maybe the ghost marriage did work and the two spirits are now together in the afterlife. And I just, like, I mean, that really doesn't make the exploitation of this, cultural element at all okay. It just, there are going to be people who watch this episode and, like, yeah, let's hypothetically say that the, you know, yeah, white guy who doesn't know about Asian culture watches this episode and gets the idea in his head that that's what ghost brides are usually like, that someone tries to kill or convince to suicide one of the people for the ghost marriage. And then maybe he gets, this hypothetical white guy viewer of this episode gets a, what's it, Chinese, I want to say Chinese, girlfriend, and she says that, well, one of her cousins took part in a ghost marriage, and then in his mind, oh, so her cousin murdered someone. That just, yeah, there is actual harm in this kind of, they could have used the idea of ghost marriage without having it involve murder. Okay. True. 2:13:30. Me failing trigonometry is not an option. I'd like to say that Jack would be really proud, but honestly, his response would probably be, damn straight. Daddy thinks he's a comedian. What exactly do you mean by, you didn't come by last night? That's not what I meant. Ground me. Send me back to Chicago. I don't care. I'm not going anywhere until I know Shay's alright. I don't care if she marries the jerk and has 24 kids. Somewhere in a megachurch, a pastor just fainted. He sends in the girlfriend. He can't face me himself. He sent me because he thinks I might get results. Right, because we know each other so well. Seriously, she has the snark of her father. Perfect. Like, I don't know exactly how. No, wait, yes. I was about to say the audition, how, they figure out she could do snark, but no. I'm almost certain, at least, this is the same actress who was on the show, like, I'm not sure if they appeared in season 1, so it's maybe not all 7 years, but like 5 years ago or something. I'm pretty sure this is the same actress who played Hannah on the show back then, and then they didn't have her snark. So, like, yeah, she grew into whatever. The Yeah, when they did these episodes, she could do snark incredibly well. They probably probably before the I mean, she's so good at it. I feel like she must have rehearsed it for a while. So maybe they said, in one of these seasons we might have you, give you some scenes with Jack, and or yeah, even not even without Jack. Anyway, we're gonna want you to be snarky like he is. So maybe you watch his scenes and try to learn that kind of snark. And it does make sense that she would pick up on that kind of snark. He does that a lot, and including we've seen him be kind of snarky sometimes around, like, what's it called, the family. The credits say that Eric Close, who plays Martin, directed this episode. I think he did a pretty good job. That is a pretty funny caricature of Vivian. Did you find him? Not yet. We do have to reach 4 minutes each episode, I'll give you $1,000 if you give me the title. Samantha and Brian try to talk. I got you a sandwich. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten all day. I know when I'm hungry. Only now it doesn't seem like an accident, does it? Jubilee, just one name, like Beyonce. Or Wong. And Jack talks to Shay. Okay, I'm sorry. Even for drunk teenagers, that is a really stupid stunt. And Brian recorded Finn pulling himself up and tells Samantha the kiss was nothing. Danny and Elena dancing and arguing is charming. Do not mock the hokey pokey, okay? Directions are in the lyrics, okay? I like that. After saying she doesn't want Danny to hum hokey pokey, she ends up humming it too. They are really, really cute together. Now, final episode of the season and of the show. Undertow, 2/17/50. Your son is a great kid. Not that one. You have another one, right? When the kid walked away and then the guy, Derek, walked over to his girlfriend, I thought the kid was going to be the one to go missing. They turned back around and he'd be gone. The 3 people under the sea, the guy most to the right looks kind of like John Cryer. The diver seems, seems really upset. I bet he expected to find the mask down there. Maybe that's too vague. The 1994 movie. Not a copy of the movie, but yeah. If you don't get it by now, you're not gonna. He basically determined to move out. Clearly that was something neither of them thought they'd deal with already. And of course they, logically they knew they'd have to eventually. They didn't think it would be that soon. The second I bring it up, he's gonna go to DEFCON 5. You're like the Jack Whisperer. And Jack immediately agrees to be Danny's witness and congratulates them on the wedding. Not gonna lie, this is nowhere near as dark and gritty as the show started out, but it's kind of nice to see these characters I care about in such happy circumstances. Like, seriously, in the first season, Jack was married and Vivian was married, and they would, excuse me, sometimes, and had kids, and sometimes their marriage and kids would come up, but it was never like, super happy cheery. It was always like, well, now there's that problem. You have to do. It wasn't necessarily like a huge problem, but it was always like, well, that's part of life, you know. It was never these really happy, yeah. I'm in a jam here. What kind of jam? Raspberry? It's raspberry, isn't it? That's where those bodies are. They got families. They should know what happened to them. I was going to give him until sundown. Is it okay if I sit in this chair? I don't see your name on it anywhere. You think you'd like to be in the junior FBI? Sweet and probably effective way of handling this. Which precinct? Clever. They're not going to have a convincing lie response to that. The kid covered his ears so he didn't hear what was said. Believable, but also kind of convenient. And then later we do find out he didn't do that. He was still scared, so he wasn't comfortable with telling. Yeah. Congratulations, she's beautiful. Good thing she's after her mom, huh? Everybody makes mistakes. You try to do what's best for them. Sometimes you forget that Jack's dad can actually be sweet and a really good father. Did we already see that flashback, or did we maybe have it related to us or something? Because I feel like I've heard that before. We again get a scene involving the missing person. That's not a flashback and doesn't involve one of the agents. There's at least 3 scenes like that in this episode. Now, I guess so there's 3 to 5 episodes in this season that has stuff like that. I mean, I'm glad it's not more, and excuse me, I mean, they work. They are, they're tense, excuse me, episodes, but we have shows that don't, this show, and I guess CSI and I've watched almost none of it, is about working your way towards finding, it's not about seeing the bad thing happening. It's about figuring out afterwards that, yeah. Hannah and Jack talk about her possibly going back to Chicago. Jack gets more information out of the kid by taking him to the apartment. I guess the kid is guessing what Derek said because he couldn't possibly have heard it like across the room and over the phone. It's not like he was on speaker. Jack threatens the kidnapper with a gun, denies him a lawyer, and it gets results, so another instance of that. The FBI agents look really cool as they're... Is it still called sailing? They've got that little boat thing up, getting up to Derek and the kidnapper. The kidnapper's about to shoot and is shot in self-defense by one of the feds. And Samantha and Jack share another scene. We always do this, and I always end up going first, so you go first. You're breaking up with me, right? Technically, yes, but I hadn't finished yet. You're breaking up with me, right? Technically, yes, but I hadn't started yet. So Samantha is going to be with Brian, or would be if not, if this wasn't the last episode. So we don't see the wedding between Elena and Danny, but it does seem like it's definitely going to happen rather than the show was going to do one of those TV show things and have it called off. And this was a great finale and a great season. And I mean, as a series finale, it wasn't meant to be. That's one thing to get to. Yeah, they decided not to renew the show. They didn't, when they were making this show, this episode in this season, they hadn't decided yet for sure if they were going to have an 8th season or not. And it would be easy to, it's not one of those closed endings where, yeah. And let's see. yeah, and I was wondering, does the finale feel like there really should have been another episode or season? I mean, it's not a cliffhanger. We know, basically everything has been resolved. There's no hanging threads left. That, like, I forget which. I want to say the third season ended on a huge cliffhanger, which is why it's annoying to me that the season 4 opener doesn't play off the DVD for me. So I don't. I mean, I watched it, back when. I mean, that's about 15 years ago by now. But anyway, yeah, what I was. Yeah, so it wasn't meant to be, and there could have been more, but it doesn't, like, watching the episode knowing that there isn't more, and it's been 10 years, so they're not likely to get another season anytime soon. It would have already happened then. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It's an okay place to, like, yeah. What I was gonna say is, if season 3 had been the final season, that would have been super frustrating, because it doesn't. It leaves the, yeah. But is it a great series finale? I mean, ultimately, I think it is a perfectly. That's another thing. This It resolves that. I mean, so far on this show, a lot of the if the main character is involved in a romantic relationship with another character, then it's a matter of time. The at the very early in the show, Martin was with Samantha. Then there was, let's see, and Jack was with the, I'm sorry, I forget her name, but the, Mastrantonio, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, I think it was the actress's name. And let's see, yeah, just of all the relationship. I mean, I will grant that Danny and Elena are together for a pretty long time without getting, but yeah. So ultimately, if they had gotten more seasons, if the direction kept going, maybe they would have stayed together. But otherwise, if the direction was more like the earlier seasons, they would have eventually split up. But ultimately, that isn't, like, you know, yeah, the things that really needed to be resolved were resolved. Jack, Hannah is going to stay in Chicago. Samantha is going to be with Brian, not Jack. Danny and Elena get married with Jack as one witness. I think, was Vivian the other one? Anyway, I think that's every single. I don't think I have. I think I've now listed all of the different story strands that were, you know, if this season had ended prematurely, some of those story strands would have been unresolved. But yeah, as it is, I don't know, maybe the writing was on the wall. Maybe they figured we gotta resolve this quick. And they decided that, excuse me, that they would give Danny and Elena a more happy conclusion than, yeah. I mean, yeah, and Jack and Hannah's relationship are also at least is also at least a little better by the end of this season than in some earlier. Yeah, I think it was a perfectly decent way to end the show, and I gotta say, like I said, it's unlikely that it'll happen now, but hypothetically, let's invent me a hypothetical time machine, and I travel back to right around the time. Like, would I try to convince them to renew the show so we would get more seasons of this? If so, I would definitely, add the caveat that you you really gotta, like, the soap opera stuff. I mean, I guess it depends on whether, did they lose a lot of viewers in these last few seasons? Because if so, it was either the soap opera stuff. Yeah, there are a couple of options: soap opera, Rosalind Sanchez, and the more the less believable plots. They also got less believable as the show went on. So there's a chance, but the thing that I really badly would want them to change for season 9 and onwards, season 8 and onwards, sorry, of this show is it's because 9 from 2009 was stuck in my head. I would really want them to make sure to address the civil liberties issues, and people being denied a lawyer, people being threatened and coerced, and really cut back on how often the agents end up shooting someone and such. Excuse me. Briefly, another romantic relationship that didn't last was Martin and Kim. They didn't even last for very many what was it, 2 episodes before they, yeah. If you don't count the ending of the episode where they first really get together, them being together, I think, is 2 episodes. If I recall, she's shot by the end of the second of those episodes. So, yeah. I guess, let me think. I'm not sure I really have anything else to say. I know that a lot of people said that the show was basically ruined in the later seasons. I saw some say that, like, the first 2 seasons are really where it's really good. I have to admit, excuse me, I can't really offhand think of something about season 3 that was worse than seasons 1 and 2. I mean, I guess I don't love all of the show, but I like all of it. And I'll admit that there are certain things that definitely changed. And I mean, if I were a purist, if I were the type of person who thought that no show, so that's a straw man. If I thought that it was wrong for the show to change in that direction, then I would have issues with it, but I didn't really, it didn't bother me the way that the civil liberties stuff bothers me. I'm gonna say it here in case if you've watched this far and you don't watch my review, I'm gonna say it here as well. There's no episode of this show that I would rate less than a 7 out of 10. Maybe most of the episodes ultimately are 7s out of 10, but then there are a number that are 8, a number that are 9, maybe even a few that are 10. I can't think of there is no episode of the show that, to me, is less than a 7 out of 10. That includes the Ghost Bride one. It's problematic, but it is still a well-made piece of, my rating for that, yeah, I believe I've made my point there. So, let's see. Right, I was talking about, So from season 4 and onwards, it was at least a little worse of a show because of Rosalind Sanchez's acting. And yeah, if this is the first video you watch of this, let me just briefly explain. Part of the thing is that she has trouble pronouncing these long, complicated words properly. So in her early episodes, all of her focus goes into making sure she's pronouncing them correctly, and it leaves very little. She has to put all her effort into that, and there's no effort left to put into the acting. And in later episodes, I would say she gets better. She had, by then she had a lot of time to practice it. But I wish that they had cast someone who was already more used to that sort of thing. Was this maybe also, I have to admit, I haven't watched that much Jackie Chan, that's how you pronounce it, I think. I'm just not that big of, excuse me. There it is. 3rd time's the charm. I'm just not that big of a fan. I'm a Bruce Lee guy, you know. I just I like, and you know, very specifically, crap, I'm sorry. I'm blanking on the title. I'm sorry. I cannot remember it right now, but it's a movie about this martial arts tournament on an island, and there are several main characters who take part in this martial arts tournament. And yes, it was part of the inspiration for how they approach the Mortal Kombat movie. I'm not saying the Mortal Kombat movie, you know, obviously it was very heavily based on those games, but the idea of traveling via boat to an island where the martial arts tournament is, and several main characters taking part in the martial arts tournament, I read on IMDb, is inspired by that movie, and it is a very good way to handle it. You know, you need some way to start that kind of story. You know, like hypothetically, let's say the movie opens and the martial arts tournament is already going. There are a lot of people who need more than that. And yeah, the movie is like, here you see them being recruited for the tournament, and then you see them leave on the boat, and so you learn about the tournament as they're learning about it, and this sort of thing. Just, yeah. Anyway, Jackie Chan. I think I've heard, I'm not sure I've watched his early movies, but I've heard that in some of his early movies, he had a lot of trouble pronouncing the English words, the lines that he was given, and because of it, he has a hard time acting. He, you know, I mean, he's a decently, like, he comes across as kind of sweet and charming and well-meaning, you know, but his acting, I've heard, is wooden in some of those early movies. Excuse me. That's not, you know, just, it's too bad. I do, for that kind of thing, I want them to wait, or to, yeah, I'm sorry, try to find an actress who already can do a really good job. You know, even if English wasn't the, you know, the first language. Anyway, I do think that from season 4 and onwards, the show's a little worse because of Rosalind Sanchez. And I guess, I mean, I have to admit, I'm not sure I thought that much about it. I mean, even some of the early episodes did have very far-fetched and unlikely scenarios. But yeah, I think the some of the twists, excuse me, did get to be more unusual and out there as the show went on. And excuse me, I understand people who say that it moved too far, excuse me, too far away from reality and realism, which in the first couple of seasons, for sure, this was a very gritty and realistic show. And yeah, over the course of it, it did move further away from that. So the yeah, you know, like I said, it happens a lot with shows that yeah, it's hard for them to stay at the same level, and I'm not sure that many shows should stay at the same level, but it's a lot of shows struggle to go further without going to just losing the audience. You know, the audience ending up feeling, you know, it's I don't envy that aspect, at least, of people who try to entertain, whether you're a writer, a performer, director, whatever, having to, like, top, you know, you can't, you certainly can't go below what's currently expected, even if you start, you know, if you started making movies 2 years ago, well, the people who started making movies 20 years ago, they just last year made a movie, or just right before you started making movies, they made a movie that's way beyond, you know, so yeah, you have to not only, you know, it's completely unacceptable to not live up to current standards. That's a lot of recent movies that are really unpopular It's because they don't match up to current standards, and they would have been fine if they came out 20 years ago or something. So yeah, you definitely can't not live up to standards at all. You also can't only like meet if this is the line, you can't just meet, you have to go above the line. And movie series or television shows, later on they have to go further and further because the line keeps moving. As you know, yeah, sorry, to proper vision, so this is what the line is before season one or movie one of the series. So they have to go just a tiny bit above, because if you go way above, people are going to say that's too far. And if you only match it, people are going to be like, well, I could watch other shows for that. You have to go just a little further. But then for season two, well, the line moved with, because you you made a new line. And I keep putting, sorry, season two, season three, and on, and eventually it just, sorry, that was the, anyway, yeah, I'm not good at visualizing things. Eventually, the line, yeah, let me just, yeah, briefly. If this is the standard, and they keep trying to top the standard, eventually they're going to go so far outside of the standard, not necessarily above, not necessarily better, but just outside of what is expected. And it, like, if you just watch movies like today, especially after 9/11, action movies changed a lot. And movies, the way they're made today, if you show, like, again, hypothetically, travel back in time, show, like, Terminator Salvation to someone used to watching 80s movies or 90s movies, and they're going to be like, what, why are they making all those choices? That's so stupid. That's completely wrong. And it's, and comparatively, show someone in the 60s an 80s movie, and they're going to think that's crazy. And yeah, sometimes it's extremely difficult to keep to a, excuse me, yeah, keep going. You have to, if let's say a season 7 episode is similar to a season 5 episode, but it doesn't go further than the season 5 episode. Immediately there are going to be some people who watch it and say, well, they're just running in place now, they're not going anywhere new. They're going to change the channel, and if enough people have that reaction, the show loses a lot of viewers and goes off the air. So yeah, I think this show did it much better than a lot of other shows, and it had less of a dramatic, like, drop off in quality than a lot of other shows. And yeah, I mean, yeah, now having watched every single, excuse me, now having watched every single episode, if someone was starting to, if someone wanted to get into it now, would I say you should watch would I say, no, you're going to regret it? Would I say watch the whole thing? Would I say watch only a few episodes? If you really get into the show for the first, yeah, you know what, let's go with 2 seasons. If you love the first 2 seasons, then you have to consider, before watching any further, do I want more time with these characters, even if the show isn't quite as good? Or do I not want to risk tainting my memories and enjoyment of the first 2 seasons with a show that isn't quite as good? And once you get to Rosalind Sanchez, you really have to question, am I going to give this actress the time it's going to take her to get good at this? Or am I just gonna, I honestly, I don't, I guess I shouldn't, here we go. I figured out how to say it. I think that some of the people who wrote IMDb reviews talking about Rosalind Sanchez not being able to, coming off as unsympathetic and not being able to, and coming across as cold. I think those people gave up on the show before they got around, before watching episodes where she shows that she absolutely can show a lot of warmth and love. And I don't blame them. I think I did. See, that's the thing. I don't remember if I kept watching. Maybe I didn't watch all the time, or maybe I stopped. Maybe I only watched, you know, 10 years, 15 years ago when Rosalind Sanchez started being on the show. Maybe I didn't watch her scenes, but I did watch the other ones. I don't remember. And yeah, ultimately, if you don't want her to, if yeah, if you don't have the patience for that, and I don't blame you if you don't have the patience for that. If you don't have the patience for her, what's the word? To stick through the episodes until she gets good at it, or at least better at it, then you're gonna want to stop watching not long after she joins the show, because it really, again, I maintain I give those episodes a 7 out of 10 at least. But her scenes in early episodes of hers, yeah, they you really have to, you kind of have, yeah, either you suffer through that, you don't watch after season 3, or you skip until these last, again, I'm gonna try to see if I can, like I said, I'm gonna be rewatching 3 episodes. I know for certain that by season 7, even at the start of season 7, she can come across as loving. I don't remember if it's in season 6 or 5, or even maybe it is by the end of season 4. But I do remember that her first episodes, I don't know that I wouldn't use the word cold. I don't know. I would use the word wooden. She comes across as an actress trying to act, rather than I didn't get a sense that she didn't care or something. I got the sense that she was trying but failing to get past. It's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. I don't blame anyone. you know, I myself, English is not my first language, but I started learning it when I was 7. You know, when I tell people that I'm not American, a lot of people are like, "Why don't you have an accent?" But yeah, just I learned how to pronounce English words at the same time I was learning how to pronounce Danish words. Because the English cartoons and children's programming were largely better. I think we did get dubbed episodes of, let's see, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman the Animated Series. But other than that, the good stuff was English, you know. So anyway, it's a challenge. It's a challenge when you're struggling to say, and they give her these long. That's the thing. They should have found someone who was much more used to speaking English, because these lines are already tongue twisters. They have to say these long words, a lot of long words in a short space of time, and they have to say them. I mean, sometimes these actors probably haven't heard the word before, but they read the word, they learn how to pronounce it, they rehearse, and because it's their first language, it's their first language. They can do that. But when it comes to her, you can tell that she puts a lot of effort in, and she manages to say the lines in a way that it ultimately feels like she means what she's saying, and maybe even barely understands it, but there's nothing past that. So it's almost, I don't. It's not robotic, but I think robot is a good comparison. It's like something that doesn't really express emotion, but it just says the things that it's supposed to say. You know, it doesn't. I didn't get the sense that she was cold, but I also didn't get. She wasn't very convincing. She always felt like an actress acting, someone reciting lines carefully and not quite able to put emotion in there past that. And that is, you know, that one critic said it was poker face acting or something like that. And that's a good, you know, but you do still get that there are emotions behind these people. You know, some of them, they suppress a lot of their emotion because they consider, you know, they have various reasons for suppressing their emotion, but it's there. And in a lot of early episodes, Rosalind Sanchez, you don't get the sense that she's suppressing emotion as much as just there's not really emotion being expressed to suppress, if that makes any sense. And yeah, it's just, but I do think that I'm happy with my decision. You know, I got this. See, I'm always forgetting. I guess, let's see, must have been my birthday present, I think. Yeah, I got this for my birthday last year. Must have been last year. Yeah, can't have been this year because when I was watching it, anyway, I got this as a present, and I knew that I was taking a chance. I was giving Rosalind Sanchez a chance to win me over the course of her season. I looked it up. I knew that she was in seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7. You know, that's more than half the show. So I gave her a chance, and I'm happy with my decision. I mean, if I had spent money of my own on this, maybe I would be. I would probably have been more frustrated early on. But as it is, yeah, I'm happy I watched all of the show. I think it was worth my time, if not necessarily my own money. And yeah, like, yeah, hypothetically, let's say you've watched to the end of this video and you haven't watched to the end of the show. Yes, if you think that the, you know, I've now mentioned a lot of the, you know, the how sweet she is in scenes with Danny once they get together, and the I've talked about the soap opera elements. I've talked about some of the more unlikely storylines. If some of that stuff appeals to you, then you know, I mean, maybe see if you can watch a few episodes for free or something before you could. I don't know. I guess I have no idea if this is on Netflix. I don't care. I don't care about Netflix. I care that it has an effect on the world, but I don't really. I'm not gonna. It's not. I'm almost definitely never ever gonna use Netflix myself. Maybe I don't know. I mean, maybe very briefly for a very short stint of time, but yeah, it's just and because I'm not gonna use it myself, you know, like with Tinder I mentioned earlier, I'm not gonna research it either. But yeah, if you can only watch this show by buying the seasons, then I would definitely recommend easing into it. You know, not don't get all of it immediately if you're not absolutely certain that you. But yeah, I do think that the it's I'm happy with the way that it's, you know, with this being the ending, considering that it's very likely that they would have gotten even more, you know, done even more torture and had even more civil rights violations. Not only appear on the show, but rationalized as being necessary. You know, there's that joke when the, I'm afraid I forget which, but one of the College Humor CEO videos. There's that bit of, excuse me, where the guy is like talking about a show. Where the CEO is talking about a show, that features someone deleting the, yeah, working in a police station and deleting, crap, what are those cameras called? Body cameras. I'm sorry, I'm completely blanking on the word. I want to say deletes body cam footage, and the way he's talking about the show, excuse me, it's clear that it's going to make it seem not only, it's not just like a neutral, doesn't do good or evil. It's not just, I mean, it's mostly good. No, it is an overwhelmingly positive thing that this happened, and it's a great, that brief joke there is a great satire over how a lot of these cop shows show things that happen in real life that cops do or accept are done, and in a lot of these shows it's shown to be a necessary evil that if it didn't happen, I'm sorry, but it's hard not to draw the conclusion from how they dealt with Spaulding. I think he appeared in 3 episodes. It's hard not to read that as an indictment of the fact that someone can be, yeah, judged not guilty if there are civil rights violations, you know, involved in processing them. And it's just, I understand that perspective, but I think it's I don't think you should convey that civil rights are in the way of justice. That's a very, very, I don't know, maybe it occasionally happens, but a lot of the time when someone violates someone else's civil rights, it's because the person violating the civil rights doesn't respect the person having their civil rights violated. It's not about, well, if they don't do it, justice doesn't happen. You already have laws that say if you have reasonable, what's it called, suspicion, or yeah, if you genuinely believe that something bad is happening, you can act. The problem is people who act even if they don't have reason to believe that there's anything wrong, because deep down they think this is the kind of person who's done something wrong, and I'm going to keep looking until I find something, and that's a huge problem. And it's really gross. Especially this show started airing after 9/11. I'm sorry, I forget exactly when the Patriot Act was, made into law, but it was very, if I recall, it was very soon after 9/11. Certainly it would have happened maybe it didn't happen before the show went on the air, but it certainly happened very early in this show's run. And this show, at times, is on the side of the Patriot Act, even though in reality, it's been incredibly harmful to a lot of people. And that's a real problem. So, anyway, yeah, what I'm getting, yeah. I'm glad that there isn't, that the show didn't get to go even further into that, because it does really affect, I'm honestly, I don't pay a lot of attention to how it is today. I hope that today it's a lot better, but I mean, there's certainly, the CSIs and NCIS Law and Order shows, a lot of those are running today, and given that they started, yeah, back in, NCIS, I want to say started in 2003 or something like that. When it started, the show, and I know a lot of the American population were in favor of the Patriot. Yeah, they believed that it would do good, that it would prevent terrorism. And there's just I have a hard time believing that it's not still really bad with shows like that, considering that they started so bad, and they've, what I saw was definitely getting more extreme in the years that I watched it, the original NCIS. So, I don't know. I honestly, excuse me. There it is. Honestly, it's probably that the people who have the power are, they're too worried about yeah, they don't realize, excuse me, a lot of them don't realize, excuse me, where a lot of the sentiment actually is, or maybe they just respond to, yeah, whatever. I think it's probably there that it has to change. Anyway, yeah, I guess I think that is everything that I really, yeah. I'm trying to make sure this is the last time I do a video about this show where I go into spoilers. When I do the review, it's going to be spoiler free. So I don't want to realize, later that there was something more. But yeah, I think I've said everything. I've already gone into the civil rights abuses, the torture, soap opera, Rosalind Sanchez, the relationships in general. I mean, I guess it's possible, over the coming 3 weeks, I'm going to be watching, I'm going to be jumping between, yeah, I feel like on the show there might have been things that changed very gradually, and as such, I didn't notice them as much as I would, as I hopefully will, now when I watch 3 episodes per season and then jump into the next season. So, in 21 days, let's see, so it's three, whatever. I don't major in math. In less than 3 weeks, I'm going to go from the first season to the 7th season, and as such, we're instead of nearly 6 months being between, like 4 or 5 months between the when I watched the last episode of the first season and the first episode of the 7th season. So yeah, so if things change gradually over the course of the seasons, I'll notice it more. Maybe I'll do a short spoiler video where I discuss those things. But otherwise, if I can talk about them without spoilers, I'll put those in the review. But yeah, I think this is the, yeah. So to briefly just, yeah, I'm very happy that I was able to watch the entire show now, even if I might not have watched all of the episodes before, yeah, by today. I'm I'm happy with, and I honestly I gotta say, like hypothetically, maybe, yeah, like again, hypothetically time travel. If I could go back to when I had just watched the first 2 seasons and either say, keep going, you're gonna love it, or you gotta stop, you're gonna hate it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, if I had stopped, I'm honestly a lot happier because I've seen them be so happy, and it sounds stupid and lame, but sometimes it's just true. It's nice to see characters you like be happy, you know, not just the actors smiling out of character in interview and such, but actually see the characters be happy in canon. Yeah, yeah. So the that covers absolutely everything. So I hope you enjoyed watching, as I enjoyed watching and recording. I'll catch you next time.